You're listening to Season 2 of Dangerous Drag Queens and Other Deviants, a production of Virtual Arts.
Hi, my name is Larry.
My name's Gret.
I'm Christy. Welcome to Season 2 of Dangerous Drag Queens and Other Deviants.
Wow, Season 2. Yeah, it's amazing. Really, congratulations, you guys.
At the time of this recording, Pride Month has just begun.
And so today we are interviewing an old friend of mine, Cherry, and they are an extraordinary person. So I really look forward to what Cherry has to say. So let's take it away. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world.
Great to see your beautiful faces.
Wonderful to see you again, Cherry. It's been a while.
Absolutely. We've spoken with you before and are always admired of where you stand in the community and what you've chosen to do for your life and who you work with. I think that if we could begin with the organizations that you're working with so that everyone who's listening can understand.
Yeah, great to be here, folks. I'll give a quick background. I am currently the manager of community engagement for the San Francisco Office of Transgender Initiatives. We are the only trans-led, trans-serving government organization in the world. In my role, I help our local nonprofits and programs interface with our city government. I help them acquire funding as well as engage with all of our elected officials in the departments. I also help our San Franciscans be connected with city government and basically have an internal advocate. I also work with San Francisco Trans March, which also has a hand in organizing our Transgender Day of Visibility and Transgender Day of Remembrance events. These are all annual events that are free and open to the public and really help ground our community. And Trans March specifically is the largest trans march in the world, and it happens the Friday before Pride in San Francisco.
Beautiful.
Wow. Oh, that's wonderful. If I can add one more question, and then I know that Gret and Christy also have some questions. You talked a little bit about the benefits to the community. We're talking about the community at large, those people who live in San Francisco, and then also the transgender population. Can you speak to the benefits about those?
I think it's wonderful to be able to have events that are free, open to the public, and really reach out to a large variety of trans folks. It can be hard to get connected, especially when you're part of a marginalized group. We constantly see the population of trans folks in San Francisco changing, where we've seen a huge influx of people coming from other countries, as well as more recently coming from other states. So to have these big pivotal events really helps bring us together. It's also an opportunity for us to offer resources to people. And it's a great show of strength and show of solidarity for the trans community as well as the broader LGBT community and our allies to be able to come together, literally walk the streets together, sing, cry, dance together, everywhere from Transgender Day of Visibility to Transgender Day of Remembrance in November, where we collectively and publicly mourn the individuals who have left us too soon. When it comes to the San Francisco Office of Transgender Initiatives, it is really amazing to have trans people in City Hall. This is something that we don't see in the rest of the country very explicitly. Oftentimes, trans folks are being excluded from City Hall or from city government and even criminalized. I help organize our Transgender Advocacy Week, which happens in April. And during that time, we meet with all 11 Board of Supervisors and we meet with the mayor. We have direct meetings with executives and upper management from these programs and nonprofits to really put a face to the names of the people that are being served. Also, I get people calling me up all the time and they're asking for help, and I'm able to direct them to resources that we've gathered as a city department. I'm also able to help call up our elected officials and say, this individual has an issue. Can you please spearhead advocacy for them? So it's just another layer of protection that gets us a few steps closer to equity. We're also able to be a role model for other states, other municipalities throughout the country who don't have these things. There are plenty of cities in the United States which are actually working really hard to reach equity for LGBT folks.
Before Gret jumps in, I just have a question on something you said. When is the march this year?
Will be on June 27th, which is the Friday. The main parade is on the Sunday, and it starts off with a public intergenerational brunch at the Women's Building. Then it's followed by a resource fair and a show that happens at Dolores Park. And then from Dolores Park, the march starts in the afternoon and goes to Turk and Taylor, which is the intersection in the Tenderloin District, which is where the Compton's Cafeteria riot happened in 1966, which is seen as one of the first LGBT civil rights moments in our country.
We hadn't planned about talking about it, but you mentioned the Compton Cafeteria riot. I will bring up the show that a good friend of ours is involved with, Mark Nasser, and I believe you got to see it, so I was wondering if you have anything to say.
One of my colleagues with the Office of Transgender Initiatives, Shane Zaldivar, she's our manager of training and education, does amazing work on the city side to educate over 30,000 city employees on competency when engaging with trans folks. She plays Rusty in the Compton Cafeteria, the riot play. I saw it on their second preview night, and it was just an amazing immersive experience. I didn't know what to expect.
Nice.
It was a visceral experience, I'd say, just sitting there in that immersive dining room or cafe set. It was catty, it was dramatic, it was intense, it was heartfelt. There's just moments when you really feel like you're one of the people witnessing this historic event. When the policemen come in, you have to resist looking down and looking away. When the drama's happening, you're encouraged to hoot and holler and laugh. So it was definitely mandatory, and it's one of those things where I just want to keep bringing anyone that is in arm's length. I want to drag them there. I want my younger siblings to see it. I want my allies to see it. Just absolutely mandatory viewing.
Love that. Really good. So just to bring it back to the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, obviously the world is, or our country especially, but I believe the world is in sort of a shift right now. Certainly government is in a shifting place right now. And I imagine that your organizations feel that. Are you feeling what's not trickling down, what's being, hosed at us by the federal government right now? And talk a little bit about means to your organizations. Are you seeing obstacles you didn't anticipate, and how are you navigating those things?
I'll start with Trans March. It is a collective effort from community. We have a central organizing committee, but Trans March isn't a nonprofit. In fact, it was recently advised not to become a nonprofit because of the attacks that the federal government is lobbying against more formalized organizations. We've even heard whispers of threats to 501c3 status and how that could actually make things more difficult.
Sure.
A lot of funding for Trans March comes from community organizations and private entities. And I think across the board, folks have seen a threat to those. People are more reluctant to give their dollars and to be visible. And even some folks have just realized that, hey, the attention isn't really here as much, the impetus to donate. And so maybe we don't really care that much. We've also seen the level of stress that people are under is a lot. And as a community, especially for trans folks and gender diverse folks, that collective ongoing stress definitely takes a psychological toll, along with the need feeling more intense as more people come to San Francisco. On the side for the city, I'll say that there's always the threat of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion funds being removed. I know that we've seen a lot of the nonprofits that operate in the city are directly being impacted. San Francisco AIDS Foundation has lost money. Lion Martin Community Health Center has lost money. Fresh Meat Productions, which gets grants usually from the National Endowment of Arts, has been affected. And so while San Francisco, we're pretty insular, we are very lucky to be supported by our elected officials in the city government. We are seeing the federal funding is really being affected, and that only makes the need for city dollars more intense, but at the same time, San Francisco has an almost $1 billion deficit that we're facing. So all around, the purse strings are getting tighter. It's hard because we're getting more and more people coming to San Francisco, especially from other states. It's great at one part because you see more trans people in San Francisco all the time, but it's hard knowing that the organizations that support them already are at capacity before this, and now they're getting defunded too. Overall, I think there's just been a lot of fear around engaging with bureaucracy, whether that be real IDs or passports and birth certificates. Engaging with the government at all for trans folks is getting more and more precarious.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you see your organizations responding and pushing back against that? Do you feel that you personally, the organizations you support and work for so diligently, do you feel you can have an impact pushing back? Even if it's just on a local level. Obviously, on a local level, you probably can. But do you see that we have anything we can do? From your perspective, what have you seen happen so far, and what can we do moving forward?
Folks are working diligently. I think people are really trying to be cautious. I'll briefly say on the city side, we in San Francisco are used to being a hotspot of buzzwords and being seen as a place that's really easy to focus. So I think folks are trying to keep the work going and keeping a low profile. The nonprofits and the community orgs are really trying to tap into their people power, donor bases, and more private funding. I think it seems a little more reliable, especially since there's not much we can do at the federal level. They're really trying to let people know about the changes that are happening, about the cuts to funding. One of the most helpful things for us is this cultural war we're experiencing, which is only escalating and having more and more material impacts on us, is that having interpersonal connections is really important. We know that the way that the algorithms works and social media works is that we can really be siloed in having barriers to understanding what's happening to groups of people that we don't normally engage with. So for our trans folks and the broader LGBT community, it's really important that we're connecting with people we might not normally connect with. We're reaching out to our allies, our friends and families, and having honest conversations about how we're being impacted and encouraging them to have conversations with people that they know. And I think when we're being divided, having those interpersonal connections really goes far. That doesn't always bridge the gap with funding. I mean, we can encourage people to donate and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think relying on the state a bit more, relying on private funding, and then really trying to just strengthen these interpersonal connections and hope that can push the narrative in a way that doesn't criminalize and dehumanize trans folks. And of course, that'll have broader implications for the rest of the LGBT community.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I keep seeing that across every group that's being affected directly by these massive changes that are happening federally. Get offline, get face to face, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your extended family, do it on the phone if you have to, get it offline. Just start connecting directly again.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
so important right now.
And bouncing off of that, on that personal connection note, a big part of the reason why at least I like doing this podcast is because we get to talk to a whole bunch of different people, and it's really those personal stories that people can connect with and just humanize, put a face to people. On that note, we're wondering, and if you don't want to go into anything, you don't have to, but personally, are there any ways that the agenda of this new federal government is affecting you, or do you anticipate that it might affect you?
In general, it's just really stressful. I know a lot of folks that I'm around, there's a general anxiety that everyone is holding now, which is really difficult. It has a huge psychological toll, and that is what the Trump administration wants from us. Personally, I won't be leaving the country anytime soon, just as a trans person. I'm currently in the process of getting my documents changed and updated and my name and gender updated. I think even that is a scary process, knowing that, okay, well, now the government has documentation that I've gone through this process. What might that lead to later on if things escalate? It's already been kind of nerve-wracking just going home to Hawaii and coming back. No issues now, but I think it isn't unreasonable to think that there will be issues later on. Just existing is more stressful. San Francisco itself has seen a rise in transphobic incidents happening. There's a rise of groups that are transphobic, harassing people, recording them, trying to create international campaigns against specific individuals for accessing spaces. In Bernal Heights recently, we saw people painting rocks and leaving transphobic messages. The LGBT center had someone set a car on fire behind the building a few weeks ago. Someone defaced the Office of Transgender Initiatives. They came and stuck a bunch of homophobic and transphobic stickers on our door. These things just add to the general stress. And I think it is scary because if you look at the ways that trans people are being treated, there is an argument saying that we are inching closer to what would look like a genocide for trans people. Trans folks already experience a huge amount of disproportionate violence, especially trans women, especially brown and black trans women. And the government is inching closer to trying to erase us as people. We've seen people getting their documents withheld from passport offices. We've seen people actually having their documents destroyed by the government offices. Trans people are being detained, thrown into prisons that don't match their gender. And when you take people and you actually make systemic barriers to them engaging in life and processes of it, the administration or the bureaucracy, that is actually taking steps to remove people from life. They're defunding all the HIV funding. That is going to result in people contracting HIV, developing the AIDS, and dying. That is going to happen. On top of them criminalizing being trans and openly even talking about being trans in certain government spaces and school spaces. It can sound dramatic and hyperbolic to say these things, but there's research on how genocides happen, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that in a few years we could see that the violence really escalates. So for me, it is hard to think about how do I even live my life outside of California? Can I live my life outside of a major city? Is that something that is even available to me? We've already seen ICE deporting people. They're going to neighborhoods. This is happening in Hawaii too, where they're targeting the coffee fields, the coffee plantations, and they're detaining whole families and deporting them. They're disappearing people who have engaged in pro-Palestinian protests at universities. We're one step away from them saying, okay, trans people are complete deviants, and they're a danger to children and good life in this society, and just disappearing people. So the more I talk about it, it gets scarier and scarier.
You can see it, you can feel it, it's palpable. Of course, it's always been there a little bit, but just because of people not understanding, one of the big reasons why this election was won was on talking about how bad transgender people are. I hadn't thought about the genocide aspect because I think of genocide as actually, like Rwanda, where you go out and you are chopping people up. But this genocide is almost more cerebral in a way. It's really changing people's minds and their actions toward this group of people, which is just ghastly. It's a terrible thing that's happening. And I think that the only thing we can do is through interpersonal relationships and speak to people about not having fears and to understand. That's one reason why I'm so happy that Mark and that group has this success with this play, because through theater, we learn a lot of things. And hopefully, whatever group comes to that, we'll learn that this group is an asset to the world. It's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we really try to emphasize in San Francisco. We have a large legacy of the LGBT community thriving, being generators of culture and art and history. Compton's Cafeteria, the Riot, the play is an amazing example of that. We have so many amazing people here. And I think that's also part of what Trans March is trying to do, coming together on the 27th. It's just showing that, hey, we are here. We're actually part of every aspect of society. Trans people, gender diverse people, gender deviants, right? We exist. And without us, you'd have a lot more of a boring world. You've had a lot more of a flat world. And living our lives becomes more and more important. I know for me, I'm trying to continue to engage in stuff. I'm part of a group called Pacifica, and it is a group of all trans and non-binary people who do go-go dancing, strip shows, and pole dancing, and it's all people from the Pacific Islands. That's one of the fun things I get to do on the side. I've performed in Oahu for Pride. I've performed in Oakland. We'll be doing a San Francisco show.
Oh, I love it.
And it's risque, and it's something to say, like, here we have trans people who are in government, nonprofits. We work in the offices. We're in drag, but here we are go-go dancing. We'll get on the pole and we'll do some dancing for you, and we'll bring together the diaspora of the Pacific as well. So that's just a fun thing. My personal side, I have a fiance who's a trans man, and we just got engaged in December, and we're gonna try to have a baby. And as trans trans people in a scary time. I think my perspective is like a lot of our ancestors, whether or not they were people of color who were colonized or they were our trans ancestors, LGBT ancestors, we're here today because people have insisted on living and surviving through the face of apocalyptic scenarios. Right. And so for me, that is what I really am aiming for, is that there are going to be more of us down the road, whether or not that's just our children or our trans siblings to come. And part of that is insisting that we survive, that we're outspoken, that we document this time, and that when the time comes, we have wisdom to pass on.
Wow, I love that so much. I don't know that we could put a more beautiful button on this conversation than what you just said. My goodness, Cherry. Just amazing. We're very grateful to have you here today and very excited to amplify your voice and the voice of the organizations that you represent. And just thank you so much. Like Christy said, the best voice is the person's voice, not ours. And so if we can amplify that and humanize what's going on, that's our goal. So thank you for supporting us in that goal as we support you in yours.
We love you, Cherry.
Always, always.
Thank you.
It was so good to see them. Oh, it's been so long.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I can't believe. I mean, how much has happened in such a short amount of time, and the mission is still strong in the midst of chaos, really, chaos.
Yeah, Cherry always seems calm to me. I can't quite put my finger on it, but living in such a world of chaos in terms of what's happening to people who are transgender and working for the city and these jobs, but always seems calm, which is extraordinary. Extraordinary. One of the things I wanted to say is that today, Hegseth and Trump decided that they were going to take away the name of the Harvey Milk Navy ship.
I didn't hear that.
The USS Harvey
I didn't
Milk.
either.
It's so mean. It's petty. And I mean, Harvey Milk has done what he's done, and he's inspired enormous groups of people. And the people who worked with him, it just takes away people saying, who is Harvey Milk? When they see a naval battleship, and he was in the Navy, you know, seeing that gone now. They can do all they want to disappear names and people, but they will not succeed because somebody will always remember. And I'm always going to remember.
That's right. And it's because of people like you and Cherry and those of us who care to continue to talk about it. I mean, if they're going to erase it off of things because they think that's important, then we'll just keep those names in our mouth.
Yeah, then they will stay alive. No doubt about it, because those people had such an impact about changing the way the world sees different people. So I don't fear that they'll be forgotten. It's just the pettiness of dishonoring them.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. Okay, so shall we see each other next month?
Yeah, we're very San Francisco heavy at the top of this season, but that's a good thing. You know, it's one of those cities that are really important to the LGBTQ community at large anyway. So I think it's a good place to be for the beginning of season 2.
Yeah. Thank you, Christy and Brett. Look forward to talking about more dangerous drag queens and other deviants.
See you next time.
Okay. Thank you.
See you then.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dangerous Drag Queens and Other Deviants. To find out more, follow and like us on all our socials. And if you like what you hear, please be sure to share with a friend. That's all for now. Keep living dangerously and on your own terms.